It's great to see so many faces. Hello, everybody. I'm so happy that this is finally happening. So without further ado, hello, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Marium Durrani. I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm also an academic scholar, a fashion researcher, an educator. I teach at design schools in Finland, and I'm also a writer. I publish work on subjects of sustainable development, circularity in the field of fashion, clothing, and craft. So, apart from that, I'm sorry that these chairs are here, but I hope that you're able to see everything that I wish to present. But yeah, apart from that, I also absolutely love to travel. I love exploring different cultures, cuisines, and of course, craft. And it's really no surprise regarding why I'm working in this field, because my own introduction to the field of fashion, clothing, textiles actually started at a very, very early age. Having been born and raised in Islamabad, Pakistan, I'm no stranger to going to the fabric store, getting clothes, and going to a tailor or a haberdashery store and having clothing made. And one of my earliest memories of getting a dress made based on my own preference is from that time. I don't know how old I am at that age, but I do remember that Eid was coming up. And I told my mom that I wanted like a pink dress and I want to wear that. And I remember wearing that quite frequently. But in addition to creativity, fashion, clothing, I was also exposed to the world of business. My father, who is now a retired entrepreneur, he ran and owned a stationery arts material store in Islamabad. And I don't know if any of you are from Islamabad or if you ever went to school in Islamabad, this was the place where everybody would get their books and stationery from. So I had like a good introduction and access to both creativity, but also economics and business. And my own interest in the field eventually led me to pursue a PhD, and that's what took me to Finland, and I've been living and working there since the past almost 9 years now. But during my time as a researcher, I essentially focused a lot on the role of craft and how, by reskilling the handcraft of remaking, upcycling, repairing, or rafugari as we know it here in Pakistan, how can we create resilient communities, how can we address sustainability, and how can we empower various communities. And since then, I have now been bringing insights from research into practice and trying to bridge the gap between academia and industry. We backtrack a little bit and ask ourselves that what do we mean when we say fashion? Like what are some of the things that pop in our mind? And even if you do like a Google search, most often you will find images that are very like high-end, gaudy, quite spectacular and designerly, and also images of runways. So something that's really like fast-moving, ever-changing, evolving, really, really, which might almost seem like out of reach in a sense. But at the same time, fashion and the industry also has a bit of a dark side to it. We know that it has contributed to a lot of wastage. Waste management systems have not always been in place that can address textile waste or post-consumer waste that comes from the clothing sector. Due to various techniques that we have used to dye our textiles, it has also contributed to polluting our water systems as well. And the industry has not always been kind to human labor as we know it. So there's also that side of the picture, which we will be talking about a little bit later. But if I were to take your attention now to craft, and if I ask the same question, like, what do we mean when we think about craft? And what are some of the images that pop in our mind? Quite often we think about grandmas knitting, just in their circles. Or we think about folk museums. So once again, something that is of the past, something that is frozen in time, something that we no longer have some sort of an access to or a reach. But with this session, what I would really like for us to do is to think about how we can take fashion out of the runways and take craft out of the museum, merge them together, what type of a future can we imagine or envision for ourselves and for the industry, of course, as a whole. And to illustrate my point, or to answer this question, I've brought in a number of examples from Finland to show you how those companies are actually addressing that. How are they taking craft thinking, embedding it into fashion making, and what type of products are they creating? And the examples that I will present will also give you an insight regarding what is it that the Finnish market likes, what are the things, what are the products that consumers like to purchase and use. So it will give you an introduction to the aesthetics and the preferences of Finnish people and the market itself. So what I will do is, there are a number of different examples. This is an example from a Finnish company. It started off in the 80s. It's called Marium. This is an example of Marium. Hopefully now you can read the text, right? Okay, perfect. This is a clothing company which initially started as a fashion company, and this is like a really great example of, you know, sophisticated cultural identity, because they focused a lot on printmaking and the heritage of printmaking in Finland. And even to this day, they still have the printing done in Helsinki. And how they have approached different aspects of fashion, for example, florals, is a little bit different. They always take the concept and turn it into an abstract. So back in the day, in the 60s, when floral printing was very popular, we would often find the print to really represent a flower in a traditional manner. But the designers at Helsinki, they took this poppy flower and played with it and, you know, made it a little bit abstract in nature. And it became incredibly successful. And to this day, in Finland in particular, if somebody's wearing this print in different variations, you know it's a mark. So over the years, they've also expanded and entered home textiles industry and also textile printing as well. So not just clothing and fashion. But really, their aim has been in terms of, like, you know, investing in the industry and redefining what heritage has meant to them. Another example I present here is that of an individual designer, Aino Heino, and what she has done is she's taken elements from Moroccan carpet weaving and married it to clothing. So she makes these beautiful leather jackets, and she uses the technique from carpet weaving in Morocco, takes symbols from them, and then brings it to contemporary fashion. And this is a small-scale initiative based in Helsinki. Also, the examples that I'm sharing, it's a mix, it's a combination. Some are large, some are medium, some are small. Ivana Helsinki is a highly valued and loved clothing brand, and she too basically, you know, through her prints, she looks at and combines art, film, music as sources of inspiration, and all of her prints are usually like a nod to Scandinavia nostalgia. And they're very feminine and very flowy prints. Then the example I present here is an example from the interiors industry, so Sarah Helsinki. So again, what they do is that they have actually preserved the technique of carpet weaving, Finnish carpet weaving, but the design is quite modern and contemporary, so they use colors that are quite neutral in nature and very minimalistic. And that's something that most Scandinavian, particularly Finnish consumers prefer, like a neutral palette, but still having elements from craft embedded into their interiors. Musu Farmi is a very interesting example. It is basically a knitwear company, and there are these group of retired women who knit different hats, and the consumer can select the yarn, which is locally sourced from Finland and also dyed locally. So they're also addressing sustainability in that regard. And each hat is it's custom made, so it's based on the measurements of the person. And each hat actually looks rather different. So it's really nice because it also represents a resurgence of the cottage industry, which was also dying out in Finland. Moi Namaste is one of my favorite examples. This is an Indian Finnish brand, and the clothing is made in India. Particularly block printing is used as a way to make prints, but it is designed to fit the Finnish aesthetic. So it's really like a nice example and something that can be used as inspiration, especially in our context here in Pakistan as well. Then these three examples I will present at the same time. These are small companies, once again based in Finland, that focus on using quality materials. And one thing that we know that when we invest in craft as a vocation really focuses on the use of quality materials. So a lot of craft people and artisans, they usually know the difference between, what does the final output look like or the product look like when it is made from good quality as opposed to not so good quality. And these three examples, they use different, for example, FNRM and Samuji. These are clothing companies that play a lot with the different techniques of textile weaving and jacquards, and they also use waste material to hand make all of their clothing, particularly FNRM. Pura Finland is an example of a clothing brand which focuses on knitwear. So, and also they have a very capsule collection. So in the summer, they produce clothing made from linen and cotton. They use natural materials. And for their knitwear, it's 100% wool that is used. So once again, like a lot of focus on the use of natural materials, local production, local sourcing. Then one thing that is very familiar to craft people is working with waste material. And the example I present here is of a company called Lovia. They reuse leather waste from the leather industry, from the salmon industry, and also reindeer. So they use a lot of waste material and they make these beautifully handcrafted, one-of-a-kind handbags. And this has been a really like an up-and-coming company in Finland, and it's quite popular. And even from the picture, you can see the attention to detail that has been given. So it's all handcrafted. Dome upcycling is an example of a local initiative where they use materials from coffee packages or other packaging material, and they create accessories. This is used from recycled plastic bottles to make this necklace, and they also make necklaces made from textile waste. So they work with a lot of different types of materials. Finnpartnership is an example of a carpet company and another example of an interior company that once again uses textile waste to weave carpets. And this particular example is actually, this was made in collaboration with weavers in India. So they also produce really beautiful, one-of-a-kind products. Then in this last group, basically here, I want to show examples where craft, technology, and textiles have been married together. And Infinited Fiber is a company that focuses entirely on textile recycling, so mechanical and chemical recycling. They also, they not only like recycle monomaterials, meaning 100% cotton or 100% silk, but also mixed materials. So even if the material has polyester, they do have patented technology which is able to recycle such garments. And also, if the garment is weaved, they are able to recycle that. And they have collaborated with companies. So what they do is they recycle the garments, create new yarns, weave textiles, and then they've collaborated with companies like Adidas, Wrangler, Patagonia as a supplier. Similarly, Pure Waste is a medium-sized company which also uses recycled textiles to create clothing for both men and women. And their collection is usually a capsule collection. And once again, they use like a very neutral palette, so blues, blacks, beige, to make and design their clothing. Then Planno, we also have pamphlets or like info materials which is at the back regarding Planno. What they have done is that they embed electronics in textiles, which can then be used to gather data and measure like the nervous system and body measurement data as well. They also collaborated with the, what is it called, the medical sector, and they worked with, so basically infants that were born who had some sort of neurological disorder, they made caps so that they can measure, because an infant can't tell you if they feel pain or something, but the textiles could measure if the infant is in pain. So they do a lot of collaborative work with the health sector and the sports sector. All right, so to quickly recap and give you like once again like a summary of what we talked about. So with all of these examples, what they're pointing towards and highlighting is that there is essentially a revival of crafts, but it has been in collaboration with the textile, clothing, and fashion industry. We also see that there has been emergence of technology. So a lot of the examples were low technology, but the last ones are high technology mixing together with crafts. So that's an area that's really interesting and important to look into. Then a lot of the examples are actually addressing sustainable development goals in multiple different ways, whether it is reusing textile waste, whether it is focusing on good quality materials, whether it is slow production, capsule collections being produced, and addressing them in different ways. Then through these examples, we also see the identification of, there's a resurgence of certain industries like the cottage industry, local economies are being supported. And this also allows for international networks being created. As I mentioned, some companies are collaborating with countries outside of Finland. And finally, most of the examples that I gave to you were actually businesses that are owned and run by women. And I think one of the things that we will also be discussing as the session continues is that, investing in this sector, investing in our women is a great way to increase the number of women-owned businesses and also contribute to the overall economy. So I think that's a great way to get some ideas and get the discussion started. So moving forward, if this goes, what is it that we need to do and what are the topics that we will hopefully be addressing, is that we do need increased efforts that are focusing on not only just cultural preservation but development of our skills, learning from each other, collaborating within and across industries and regions, which is essentially what this platform will allow for us to do. Building networks, improving access to global markets, because I will talk a bit about this in my second presentation, that in order for the arts craft industry to flourish, we need access to global and international markets. And most importantly, the foundation upon which this can be done is investing and really focusing on education, training, capacity building, researching, market research, and understanding the user needs overall so that we can actually better address and create a flourishing market. And that's it for now. Thank you for your attention.